Hey folks, Pete back with you. I had a viewer ask if when I cut the PTO shaft on the new winch, if I would do a quick video on how to do that. So I'm doing that today. It's like 6 below zero actual air temperature outside. So we're in the garage. I got some coffee going. I put the propane heater on for a little bit in here, but it's still right around 20 degrees in here. So we'll make this fairly quick, but and it shouldn't take long. So step one in determining how long that shaft needs to be, we need to measure the distance, straight line distance, actually in the position that the winch is in now, because obviously the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. So right now the shaft, the PTO shaft on the winch is at about the same height as the PTO shaft on the tractor. And the side to side length distance, that's offset just due to the way the winch is designed. The shaft goes in off center, so it's not going to stick straight out. But I'm going to try and get a little bit of decent footage in here. So there's the shaft inside the winch, and you can see about 1.25 inches from the tip there's grooves in there, and that's what the pins grab on when the PTO shaft is slid on there. There's a pin on the shaft that slides through those grooves there and locks it in place. And then it's the same story on the tractor side too. There's the groove there that you can see in the round pin. So what I did is I took a measurement from the center of this right here, this groove right here. I took a measurement from there to the same point on this shaft. So I got a measurement right now. This will be the shortest it will be. I've got a measurement of 28 inches from that pin to this pin. So, okay, so let's move over to the bench now. I don't think I need that light. So here's the pin right here. You can see when I push this in, maybe I'll put a light inside there so we can see what's going on. You can see at the top there, hopefully there's a shiny piece of metal. The rest of it's a little rusty. But right at the very top at noon, you can see that's where the pin is. And when I push on this, it moves that pin out of the way. See how it comes out the other side? When I push on this, it moves it out of the way, and that's how you slide the shaft on the PTO shaft of the tractor or your implement. So that 28-inch measurement I took is going to be from this pin over to this pin, which is underneath here. Basically, it's in line with that. So when I measured that on this, with it fully compressed, I got a little bit ahead of myself. I already cut this off from the sleeve on this side. But I wanted to see how cutting that plastic would go with the cutoff wheel. So anyway, so okay, so the measurement on the tractor from pin to pin was 28 inches. And when I measure pin to pin on the shaft here with it fully compressed from pin to pin, I get 29.5 inches. So if I were to cut 1.5 inches off each side of this shaft, it would be like fully compressed when it was in this position. And we don't want that. We want it to have a little bit of playroom just in case, you know, if the winch shifts a little bit and it tries to shorten this, we wanted to leave extra. So what I did is I pulled these two halves of the PTO shaft apart by 1.5 inches, took my measurement. Okay, so I just cut the metal part of the PTO shaft on one side. So here it is. This is 3 inches long, the same as the plastic here. So now this side of the PTO shaft is cut to length, but because when this is fully compressed, both sides bottom out, I also need to cut 3 inches off from the black plastic and the metal shaft on this half of the PTO as well. So that's what we're going to do next. We're gonna cut that off, and then you can see from this cut, I used the cutoff wheel on the grinder. There's a lot of burrs and stuff. So before we put this together finally and hook it up to the winch, sorry, we need to grind those corners and edges down and file them and stuff so that there's no burrs, because this will, as I raise and lower the winch, this will expand. This will lengthen and it'll shorten as I lift and lower the winch, and we don't want any burrs on that. So let's see if I can get the camera set up somewhere so that you can see what I'm doing. All right, hopefully that's going to be a decent view. So here you can see as that shaft needs to lengthen and shorten when we lift and lower it, you can see how it slides on itself. Okay, so now I cut 3 inches off this plastic that was on here, like so, and then I cut 3 inches off the metal shaft as well. So now we need to do the same thing to the other half. So I went ahead and I marked the plastic piece, because we're going to cut that first, at 3 inches. And I'm going to try and use the cutting wheel again. I don't think I'm going to get another cut out of the excuse me, out of this wheel for the metal, the steel piece, but I'm going to follow this line all the way around with this to cut the plastic off. Okay, so now we got the black one cut size. Let's wipe this down a little bit. Very important when you first put these together that this side of the shaft goes inside of this side of the shaft. And they're not symmetrical. There's 3 points kind of at what the shaft grabs to transfer the power from this end to that end. You can see these 3 points right here. Maybe I'll bring it up closer so you can see. There's 3 points here, one of which has a flat on it. These just come to a point, and this one actually has, this one has a flat on it. So that's the only orientation these two pieces will go together. So it's important, I'll show you how this will slide together like so, right? So as this is going to slide back and forth, it's important to grease both this surface right here, and we'll put some grease on the inside of this surface so that when it's together, we'll have this all nice and clean and lubricated so that it won't freeze up as rust and stuff sits in there if it's going to sit around for months at a time, which the winch will, because it won't get used much in the summertime. So that'll make sure that everything stays free and that it's free to move in and out as it needs to when it's on the tractor. So now we got to mark the shaft itself at 3 inches. And there's a couple ways. I cut the other one with a cutoff wheel. But you can use a hacksaw or a sawzall or, you know, anything like that if you want to cut this. And I'm just kind of connecting these dots here. I'm going to cut what I can from the top. And now I've got a nice guideline there to cut to. Let's see. I think what I'm going to do is this cutoff wheel is it's one of those carbon fiber types, and it's pretty well worn down. So I'm going to put my multi-cutting wheel on here. It's brand new. I actually haven't used this yet, but it's diamond tipped. So I'd be curious. This should go through that steel pretty easily. It's not hardened steel at all. Whoops. It's so cold that glue, that kind of normally that gel glue that holds things in is like rubber, and it comes right off, but it's not on a surface that's going to matter, so I'm going to leave that. So let's put this cutting wheel on. And it's a multi-use type of blade. You can cut ceramic tile with this, concrete, metal, laminates, fiber cement, and like PVC pipe and stuff like that. This is what it's made for. So let's see how this works on this shaft. I'm curious to see how that cuts. Okay, we got that side done. The wheel actually works pretty nice. So let's cut the rest of it from this angle. I'll just finish my line here. And finish it up. There it goes. It's gonna be a little warm. So there we go. We got that cut off. So now we've got 2 3-inch pieces of the shaft, which let me show you how those go together here. Like so. There's a little bit of dirt in there, so it's also very hot. But anyway, so that's how those go together. So now that we've got everything to length, we need to deburr all these surfaces around the outside of this one and around the inside and outside of that one. So for that, we're gonna put one of these sanding discs on. That wheel worked pretty well. I could have used a Sawzall, but it boy, it really shakes everything to pieces when you use that, if you can't hold it tight. And I really don't have that in the vise tight because I don't want to deform anything. So there we go. So now I'm just going to go around the outside just to take that burr off. Okay. So now that's nice and smooth. There's no sharp edges to catch on the inside of that other shaft. I am going to clean the inside of this up just a little bit too. I should have a file here for that. So, excuse me. So I'm just going to take the worst of this off. There we go. That feels good. So that one's ready to go back together. This one here we need to still clean up the end on. So we'll do the outside with this. Yeah, I don't feel anything catching now on that. This one we got to be a little bit more careful with on the inside because this side's going to be rubbing on the outside of the other shaft. So we want to make sure we get this one really nice and clean of any burrs. And we'll test fit this to make sure that I don't feel any resistance. Disclaimer here, I'm not an expert at this. You know, I have done it a couple of times. I'm sure there might be better ways to do it, but this has worked for me, so that's the way I do it. All right, well, let's see how this goes in there. So this one has to go like so. Oh yeah, that feels good. Yeah, that slides in and out of there nice. Okay, so next we want to make sure we clean things up really well. Clean the inside of this up. And let's clean Clean this up really well. Okay. Let's see. Let's move my fat bike out of the way. Up here in Vermont, us bike riders that like to ride year-round. In the wintertime, we ride these fat bikes. This one's got 4.5-inch wide tires, and I believe there's about 200 carbide studs in each tire here, and that's a lifesaver for when things get icy. So let's leave that there. Let me grab some grease. That high temp lithium, we'll use that. So this here, this one's going to get grease on the inside. And quite a bit of it, because it's going to spread out over several inches. It's going to spread out over like an 8-inch. Oh, somebody's home. Like that. And then this one's going to get the grease on the outside. My wife went over to the laundromat because we have some huge quilted bedspreads that needed to be washed, and our washer and dryer probably wouldn't fare too well if we did it. So she went over to use the big ones at the laundromat. So I would imagine I'm going to get someone to help carry those in. Hello?
Hey.
Let me move this out of your way. How was it? Busy?
No.
No? Good.
I was the only one using the washing machine. Good thing. It cost me like $45, you know.
$45 at the laundromat.
It's $5.50 a load.
Wow.
About $3 per dry per load.
Wow. Well, thank God we don't.
Good job. I didn't realize how many cooks I had.
Thank goodness we don't need to use that all the time, huh? Okay, so let's slide these two halves together, and then we'll get a measurement. Let's see, square. Let's get a measurement from pin to pin now that we've cut it, and see if we've got a little margin of error to work with. That was my hope. We should be able to extend this about 1.5 inches, which I'll do that here. And then from pin to pin should be 28 inches. Let's get these up. So from there to there is exactly 28 inches. And we have 1.5 inches now of gap that this can compress further. So that gives us 1.5 inches of safety margin. Yeah, I can move that.
The weighted blankets in here.
Is that all right? Okay, so that should be ready to go on. The only thing left to do now is we need to grease these. We need to grease, okay. We need to grease the zerks on both ends of these U-joints. And they are painted over right now. So that means I'm going to take a little screwdriver and scrape that paint off, make sure those little balls are free free of paint and can compress, which now those are. Now let's make sure we can do the same on these. Let's see here. There's a little hole in this shroud to get in there, which is nice. Okay, good. That's done. And that is done. So now I can get grease in those U-joints. And both sides of these are identical in terms of the grease fittings that are on there. So it doesn't matter which end goes where when I get it on the tractor. But I'm gonna have to go grab my grease gun. Okay, well, we had the garage door open for a little bit and it is frigid. So I'm gonna go ahead and fire the propane heater back up for a bit. Make sure that's open. And yeah, we'll let this warm up a little bit. I've got to grab my grease gun. In case you haven't noticed, I'm a big fan of Milwaukee power tools. Ooh. The latest one I bought was this little 16-inch saw. And my goodness, that thing cuts great. I mean, obviously there's a new chain on it, but I put a 12 amp hour battery in that, one of Milwaukee's new Forge batteries. And I cut all the logs in that log pile I got down below. There's probably 25 logs down there. Most of it's ash. And I only use half the battery. It's amazing stuff. It works really well. I'm gonna try and set you up over here now. Let's see. Actually, before we do that, I want to show you these grease fittings. So there's one of the grease fittings. I had to get the paint off the ball there. Can you see that right there? And then the other one you can see through the hole. Same on the other end. So let's set you up where you can see this. We got to put a battery in there. I have one of those lock-in lube adapters here on the end. I'm a huge fan of them. It's so easy to put on a grease fitting, and then even if there's pressure built up in it, you can easily remove them too. So let's go ahead and put some grease on these U-joints. That grease is cold in there, but here it comes. It's starting to work its way out. Looks like I'm starting to get some red grease there too. Looks like it's coming out of everywhere too. Oh yeah, that looks good. Let's get this lined up. It's nice to see that these were greased well when it was shipped. But I always take a fair amount of flack for maybe over greasing stuff, but I don't know. Maybe it's just me, I'm paranoid or OCD or whatever, but I think I'd rather over grease stuff than have premature wear. So there we go. These are actually little fittings for the plastic. You can put a little grease on those so the plastic slides slides easier. I don't think I need much in there, but that should be plenty. Okay. So everything's greased. Wipe off the excess on here so I don't get it all over us when we're handling this thing every time. And those U-joints, let's see how those feel now. Those feel nice, very nice and free. Now, as long as we took enough of that length off, we should be able to get it in. This will be the toughest time to get it on because the winch is already on the tractor. Normally the side on the winch side will be, will stay with the winch, so it'll be easier to put on. But I think so long as if I slide the side on the winch side and push it beyond the pin, so it'll go in and snap, and then I'll push the pin and slide it in the rest of the way. With that 1.5 inches here and that extra that we slide it on, it should make its way on there, no problem. So, oh, there it goes. There it goes. Now I got it in there. And I got the one on the tractor on, but if that gap's 1.5 inches, which it looks like it is, then we should be good. 1.5 inches. Okay. I think I can put it around here. It's kind of tight, but it should work. That'll keep these shrouds from spinning. Okay. All right. Looks like that's on there good. It's definitely slid in there, and I know that the pin snapped. I saw that one snap. And that one should be good too. Let's give it a try. All right, I just pulled out the manuals and stuff. Let's see what we got here. I want to make sure I don't miss any grease fittings on it. Okay. Okay. There's grease fitting on the winch. Yeah, I know, which enables greasing of the upper pulley and the guide. The second grease fitting is on the housing of the lower pulley. Greasing it requires every 60 hours. A PTO shaft needs to be lubricating according to instructions on the manufacturer of PTO shaft. There's one right there. Oops. Battery out of the light. Okay. So, let's give this girl a little bit of grease. Okay, starting to come out a little bit on the top. Oh yeah, much better. That's loosened up nice. And then the other one is right in here. Make sure that's clean, looks good. Okay. That looks good. And that slides nicely. Beautiful. That's it for grease fittings. I like it. Easy to maintain. All right, tractor started up. I'm gonna take it outside and try this winch out. Okay. I think what I'm going to do is I'll pull the cable down the driveway. We'll set this up here. Let's see what happens here. Drop this all the way down. That's on. Okay. See what PTO, what happens here. PTO is on. It's actually pretty quiet for a winch from what I've seen. Release it. Let's see if that does. Yes, it does. All right. I'm not going to actually pull anything with it this time. I don't want to pull too much out because without any force on it, when it retracts, I don't know if it'll spool up properly. So I think that's probably good enough. Let's see. Let's bring her in. There she comes. Sweet. Awesome. Works great. Works great. And I'm really happy how quiet that is. Darn temperatures to improve a little bit. Boy, with the sun out, you can really see how big this thing is and how nice it is too. Gosh, it's beautiful. Oh yeah, this pin must, perfect. Yeah, that pin pops out. You can get the cable around there. There. There's that. So now I got this wrapped through the pulley, pop that pin back in, and now it's free to go on from underneath. Let's give that a there we go. Now she's hanging down here. I think I'm gonna do it like that. I'd rather pull from a lower position. Oh yeah, that's nice. That's a nice setup.